question 48 of Prima Secunda of the Summa Theologia. We have come now to the last question on the Treatise of the Passions, and it really highlights the fact that if you just take it one question at a time and you're patient with yourself, you can get through the Summa pretty quickly. And again, this is a long haul, but little by little, step by step, and we're going to make it to the very end of the Summa. And I hope you're enjoying this. I wonder if any of you have watched all the videos so far. I'm trying to do one every day, but there are some days that unfortunately I have to miss. So the final question with 4 articles in the Treatise on the Passions is the effects of anger. Now that we've learned that anger is a unique passion, it has no opposite, it's an irascible passion, it is associated with both evil and with good. What are the effects? What happens when we are angry? And I find these really interesting articles to just see how much St. Thomas Aquinas was in tune with human psychology, and just the knowledge of his human person was just quite impressive. So Article 1 says whether anger causes pleasure. And I think if we think about it, when we get angry, there is a certain release, a certain pressure, the pleasure that we feel, whether it's like this guy or, we kind of have to let it out a little bit, right? So Thomas says pleasures, chiefly sensible and bodily pleasures, are remedies against sorrow. And therefore, the greater the sorrow or anxiety, the more sensible are we to the pleasure which heals it, as is evident in the case of thirst, which increases the pleasure of drink. Now it is clear from what has been said that the movement of anger arises from a wrong done that causes sorrow, for which sorrow vengeance is sought as a remedy. Okay, this is all review. Consequently, as soon as vengeance is present, pleasure ensues, and so much the greater according as the sorrow was greater. Therefore, if vengeance be really present, perfect pleasure ensues, entirely excluding sorrow, so that the movement of anger ceases. Okay, so we desire vengeance, we desire justice, and that's why we get angry. We want some kind of remedy for it, and then once it happens, we feel good, we feel pleasure, right? But before vengeance is really present, it becomes present to the angry man in 2 ways. In one way, by hope, because none is angry except he hopes for vengeance. In another way, by thinking of it continually, for to everyone that desires a thing, it is pleasant to dwell on the thought of what he desires, wherefore the imagining of dreams are pleasant. Accordingly, an angry man takes pleasure in thinking much about vengeance. This pleasure, however, is not perfect, so as to banish sorrow and consequently anger. Okay, I think those are great insights into the human person, is that when something happens to us, we're slighted, we seek vengeance, and the very hope of seeking vengeance will provide some pleasure to us. All right, whether anger above all causes fervor in the heart. Okay, it's what Thomas calls a bodily transmutation. Does something happen to us physically? He says, on account of the heart being so disturbed by anger, those chiefly who are angry betray signs thereof of their outer members. For as Gregory says, quote, the heart that is inflamed with the stings of its own anger beat quickly, the body trembles, the tongue stammers, and the countenance takes fire, the eyes grow fierce, they that are well known are not recognized. With the mouth indeed he shapes a sound, but the understanding knows not what it says. Okay, so that's the way that our body is impacted by anger. Article 3, whether anger above all hinders the use of reason. Although the mind or reason makes no use of a bodily organ in its proper act, yet since it needs certain sensitive powers for the execution of its act, the acts of which powers are hindered when the body is disturbed, it follows of necessity that any disturbance of the body hinders even the judgment of reason, as is clear in the case of drunkenness or sleep. Now it has been said that anger above all causes a bodily disturbance in the region of the heart, so much as to affect even the outward members. Consequently, of all the passions, anger is the most manifest obstacle to the judgment of reason. And then he quotes Psalm 30:10, my eye is troubled with wrath. So there's a real connection between anger and the application of reason so that it can be righteous anger or sometimes unrighteous anger. And if it isn't in line with reason, it's going to cause the reason to be diminished, right? You're not going to make good decisions if you're angry. That's why, you should never send an email when you're angry or have a conversation with your spouse when you're angry, because you tend to not be as reasonable as you might otherwise be. Article 4 says whether anger above all causes taciturnity. That just means quietness, sullenness, you're withdrawn. Anger both follows an act of reason and hinders the reason, and in both cases it may cause taciturnity on the part of the reason when the judgment of reason prevails so far that although it does not curb the appetite in its inordinate desire for vengeance, yet it curbs the tongue from unbridled speech. Gregory says, sometimes when the mind is disturbed, anger, as if in judgment, commands silence on the part of the impediment to reason, because the disturbance of anger reaches to the outward members, and chiefly to those members which reflect more distinctly the emotions of the heart, such as the eyes, the face, the tongue. Wherefore the tongue stammers, the countenance takes fire, the eyes grow fierce. Consequently, anger may cause such a disturbance that the tongue is altogether deprived of speech, and taciturnity is the result. And there's a picture here of a man who's kind of withdrawn into himself, not talking to his wife. And so I think sometimes, perhaps mostly with men, this is how we respond. We just become really quiet, really moody, and very sullen when we get angry. I certainly know that I've been guilty of that many times in my life. Okay, well, that brings us to an end of the Treatise on the Passions. Congratulations on getting through all these treatises. Tomorrow we'll begin the treatise on habits, and then we'll go into virtues. Okay, thanks for joining me. God bless you.